Hey everybody, welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet, and we've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Voyager class Bulkhead. So as we always do, let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging first, and this is the new Legacy packaging, so we'll spend a little bit of extra time and take a look at all the goodies they have on there. We'll start right up at the top. You have Transformers Legacy with that new logo, and you can see there's no plastic here. This is their new eco-friendly design. Moving on down, of course, you have Takara, Generations, Transformers on the side, and then you get that artwork right there. Looks really good of Bulkhead in his alt mode. He is the Prime Universe Bulkhead. There you have the Transformers Legacy. He's Voyager class. They have that on the front now instead of on the sides. And speaking of the sides, here we have some nice artwork. So you've got Prime and a few other characters right down there. Everybody looking good. Transformers Legacy. On the back, you have Transformers, More Than Meets the Eye, Prime Universe Bulkhead. He transforms in 30 steps into this really cool alt mode. And you do get a QR code right here. If you care to scan it, that'll give you a little bit more details on his vital statistics. And parents. There you go. And then down here you have your warnings, and you do have the sad baby. So it is good to see that some things never change. On this side, you get that Bulkhead artwork, so you can get a close-up of his really handsome mug, and then his full body shot in his bot mode. Down here at the bottom, you get your standard manufacturing information. So that is it for the outside of the packaging. Let's go ahead and see what came inside that box. Behold, laid out here before you is everything that came inside that box, and of course you do get your little sheet of warnings. That's great if you guys haven't caught up on that essential reading yet. And then you do get the new style instruction booklet. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just do want to show you. So it's a new color scheme and a little bit new artwork. Personally speaking, I can't say I'm a big fan of the color contrast in here. I think it's all a little bit muted, but the instructions, they are clear and concise, so you have that. And then you are left with 3 accessories, and these are actually really cool accessories. I gotta say I'm actually pretty impressed for a Voyager class. So we're gonna start right over here on the left, and we're gonna take a look at this cool little gun that he comes with, and it kind of looks like a minigun here on the front. So do with that what you will, but then you've got that nice translucent blue plastic, and then you've got this painted area right here. Sculpt work looks really good. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad. Not bad. And you can do a few different things with this weapon, which we'll see when we get to the accessorized portion. And then we'll take a look at this. This is his murder mace, whatever you want to call it, the big ball of death. His really mean fist, I guess, whatever you want to call it. So there you go. It's got a nice silver paint to it, and as you can see, effects compatibility all over the place here. So yay, I'm so happy. And then this just fits right over his fist. So what you do actually is you just open this up. It's on a little clamshell, and then you put that port right through his hand hole, and then you close this around the fist, and there you go. So it's actually a clever little design too. So you don't have to take a fist off. You don't have to worry about losing it. This just clamshells right over it. So very cool, and it looks great. All right, and then that will bring us to his last accessory. So in his vehicle mode, this is his tarp cover on the back of the vehicle, but when he's in his bot mode, he can use this as a shield. So it is reversible. So this is the, what I guess you would call it, the outside or the vehicle mode. So this is how you would see it on the vehicle, and you've got good sculpt work all around on there. There's really no painted areas on this, but it is that nice kind of dark green. But then what you can do for his bot mode is you can take these, and you can see these grooves and tabs right here. I'm just going to open those up. You can do this, and then that's going to close up right around his arm, and then you have this little tab that sticks out right here, so you can spin that either direction. So you can bring that in so it's sticking up that way, or you can bring it around this way if you want to do it like that as well. The only problem with going this direction is you do have this tab right there, this little peg sticking out, which you would use on the back when you store this on his bot mode, or his vehicle mode for that matter. But when it's stored there, these two can kind of interfere with each other. But yeah, I mean, this thing looks pretty cool. So there it is on the inside, or what you would see the outside in the shield mode. So you've got this nice ribbing right here, and you do have some good marking there. I've got this, technically speaking, I have it upside down, so let's turn it the right way. All right. And then, like I said, back here, get another good look of it. So there you have it. I think the accessories, everything that he came with here, it really does a good job of complementing this figure. So now that we've got the accessories out of the way, let's go ahead and bring the big guy himself in and take a look at this figure. I got to tell you, I'm impressed. Oh yeah, for a Voyager class figure, Bulkhead looks good. I got to tell you that when they first announced this figure and I started seeing the pictures on the internet, the pre-production photos and everything, I was really concerned that this entire chest area was just going to be an eyesore. And really, once you get it in hand, it's not bad. It works. Somehow, it just works for Bulkhead. And even when you see him from the side, it seems like it sticks out considerably. But it works. When you've got this guy in your hand and you put him in some nice dynamic action poses, this figure just works. I love the way he looks. But let's go ahead and get into some of those details. And I'm just going to bring him in here. And I'm going to try to keep the focus on the head and not on the chest if we possibly can. So you can see that head sculpt. Bring it in like that, maybe. That is part of the problem. This chest is does stick out so far. My camera wants to focus on the chest instead of the head. But trust me when I tell you that head sculpt really does look pretty good. You can see those blue eyes in there. And all that detail going on. And then up here at the top, it's pretty plain because this is essentially just the vehicle cab. So, you're not going to have a lot of bot details there, but it works. It looks really good. And same thing here. So this chest is just the front of his vehicle mode. So it's going to look awfully familiar when we get him transformed. And then coming down, looking up underneath here. So not a lot going on as far as that crotch goes. But then you get down to these thighs. And man, he looks fantastic. Look at these paint apps down here. Those kneecaps, those thighs. All that just looks great. And then coming down this way a little bit. Good sculpted in detail. He does have nice big feet. Makes it really easy to get this guy in some poses. I mean, those feet are just ginormous. So no issues as far as standing and dynamic posing on this guy. You're just going to be able to have a blast with him. So let's go ahead and take a look at the side. And you've got some blast effects ports there. Got that nice silver right up here. All that's looking good. Essentially the side of the truck right there. Looking up underneath the arms. Really no major hollow areas. You get a little bit right here, but it's not that bad. And really, it's not noticeable because how often are you ever going to look up underneath like that? But you do have these filled in areas right here, so that is really helpful. And then coming up here, looking at the fronts of the arms. Maybe he could have done with a little bit more paint right here, but keeping in mind this is a Voyager class, it's really not that bad. Got a blast effect port right there and some nice detailing, and then of course you got your wheels right there. All right, and then coming around to the back, even back here, he does not look bad. He really doesn't. I mean, there's no major hollow areas. There's nothing here that indicates a figure falling apart in the back. He just looks good back here, and these are actually faux wheels. So it's kind of interesting that they had those on there, but it does add to the look of the figure. And everything here, it looks great. I mean, even the backs of the legs are painted. How cool is that? So yeah, he works. Now, if you look up under here, he's a very empty-chested fellow, but hey, let's not look under there. A couple blast effects ports back here, and you do use this for the weapon storage in the vehicle mode, but of course you can use it in the robot mode too to just get this guy going blast effect crazy. So what we'll do now is go ahead and get into that articulation and go over all the different ways you can use this guy. Now, before we jump into that articulation, I do want to say, and this is actually a good problem to have, the joints on this guy are really, really tight. So if I disconnect his shoulders, it's only because the rest of the joints in the arms are so tight. So this isn't a flaw or anything up here. It's just he's got nice tight joints, so it has a tendency to pull these shoulders out of socket when we're looking at him as far as the articulation goes. So just a friendly heads up on that. So let's go ahead and jump into that articulation, and we'll start with that head. So that head's on a ball joint. You get a little bit of movement here. You get a little bit of side to side, a little bit of up, and a little bit of down. So not a lot to deal with there, but it's enough. As far as side to side turning, you can take him to the right that far before he runs into himself, and to the left that far before he runs into himself. And then over here at the shoulders, as I mentioned, these are very tight, so you can bring his shoulders up that far, and then you can take them all the way around. And then down here at the elbow, it's a single joint. However, look at this. Nice deep elbow bend. Look at that. Yes, this is due to transformation. This is part of how you fold him up for the transformation, but tell me you're not going to be able to utilize that. Of course you're going to be able to utilize it. And then at the wrist, you get full wrist rotation any direction you want to go, as many degrees. All right, so let's move these arms up out of our way, make our way down to the waist. So you do get waist rotation. You can go all the way around with that guy if you choose to do so. And then we'll make our way down here to the hips. Check it out, guys. Look, look, look. Yes, full splits. It is almost a Van Damme. If he could get a couple more degrees up, that would be a full Van Damme, and that would be just Van Damme-tastic. So, moving right along. On thigh rotation, let's go ahead and get that out of the way now. So you can get thigh rotation out that far, thigh rotation in that far. And if you kick the leg out, I mean, you can take it further if you want. But, I mean, really, you're going to be relegated to about here for most poses. So it's still a good amount of the thigh rotation. Really no limits on what you can do here. And kicking forward, kind of the same thing. So if you watch out for this geometry here and this geometry here and bring his leg out a little bit, you can kick that leg out essentially until he hits the cab, and even further out you can just keep right on going if you choose to do so. And then to the back, he's going to hurt himself. Nobody's that flexible naturally. Nobody. And coming down here to the knees, same thing. Just like the arms, single joint, over 90 degrees bend on those knees. So just absolutely great. Welcome sight to see. Oh, by the way, when you open those up, even those are silver. So really cool. Just nice little attention to detail there. Moving down to the feet. So you have the ability, if I put the feet level, so you can take the feet down about that far. You can take the feet up about that far, but then you have individual toe and heel motion. So really however far you want to go with that, you can do so. So foot out, heel down, vice versa, whatever you want to do. So you have that option. And then you do have some nice ankle tilt. So guess what we get to do? Oh, it's sumo time. And he's a big dude. It makes sense. If anybody's going to do sumo, Bulkhead is going to do sumo. So yeah, articulation on this guy, top notch for a Voyager class figure of this size. Very well done. So what we'll do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this guy accessorized up. We're going to bring in all of his goodies, and we're going to show you all the things you can do with this guy and have a little bit of fun. All right, everybody, so here we have Bulkhead in what I'm just going to call configuration number 1 as far as the accessories go. And this is pretty standard, it's okay, you know, but it's not as exciting as some of the other ones that we could do. But I do want to take the opportunity to kind of show off all the different configurations. So as you can see, he's got his tarp / shield on the back. So this is some typical storage that you can do. You can leave this on during transformation, so that way it's already there. You can have it, you know, as you transform him into his alt mode, you don't need to move that. You can leave it on for his bot mode if you don't want to use it. But most of the time, me speaking personally, I'm going to use this as a shield just because it actually looks really cool. So, but yeah, you can definitely store it back here if you choose to do so. And then he has his, I don't know what you want to call it, a minigun. I'm going to call it a minigun. He has his minigun. He can just hold it in his hand. Obviously, he's got these ports on his arms too, so you can put them right there on his forearms if you want to do that instead of just having it in his hand. And then he's got his big murder mace on his left hand over here. And the nice thing is this thing is interchangeable. It's left hand, right hand. It's just a matter of are you going to put the port through the top of the hand or through the bottom of the hand. But you have full interchangeability there, so you can put the murder mace on either hand and you know, hit other bots with it and bash them in, I suppose, if you want to. But yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty good. You know, configuration number 1 here, it works. It's fun. I don't have any issue whatsoever with it. But let's get into some more fun configurations. Here we see Bulkhead in what I like to call configuration number 2 as far as the accessories go. And I think this might be my favorite because this is kind of his shield bashing pose. This is almost like the, kind of the SWAT team first guy in kind of look. So you've got this shield right here, and it just looks like he is just laying it right into somebody and knocking him over with that shield, and then he's getting ready to use his murder mace over here to finish the job. And of course, for any of those other attacks, he's got his minigun right up here. So you've got a couple of ports right up here where you can put that minigun on either side. But I absolutely love the way this looks. It's so cool. I can't get enough of this. But yeah, so this is kind of configuration number 2. This is likely going to be the way I have him on my shelf. I just think he looks phenomenal right here, and really looking forward to playing with this guy, if I'm being honest with you. I'm super excited about this figure. So there you go. Now what we'll do next is I'm going to put him in my configuration number 3. This is something that I just stumbled upon. It may not be the best, but I found a little bit of fun with it, so let's go ahead and take a look. And here's that final unofficial configuration with the accessories. I'm not entirely sure if Hasbro and Takara, if they intended for it to work this way or not, but I have discovered that you do have this port right here in the shield, and if you plug the shield into his murder mace and plug the weapon into his murder mace, you can actually get that weapon to fit right through that little rectangle right there. And so this is kind of the configuration where, in my thoughts, he's fending off an aerial attack. There's a seeker coming down, trying to take him out, and he's using that shield, holding it up, firing back at them while remaining protected behind his shield. And yeah, I kind of like this look. Like I say, I don't know if I like it as much as the other shield bash look, but I think this is something that you could certainly do with this guy, and it lends to the imaginary play. And just for fun, I did throw a blast effect on there to make it look like a seeker was coming down and trying to take Bulkhead out. So there you go. Now what we'll do is he does have a flight stand on the back. So I'm going to try to put this guy on his flight stand and try to give you guys a representation of everything you can do with all the blast effect ports that you have on Bulkhead, of which there are many. So let's go ahead and get into that. Well, in case you were wondering, I can tell you definitively that this figure has blast effect compatibility. I mean, look at this guy. He's got ports everywhere, and you can just have a ton of fun with him. So I kind of have them haphazardly put on there with no real rhyme or reason, but I just wanted to show all the different possibilities that you could have with this guy. And I mean, you could see, of course, down to the feet, you can have a rocket Bulkhead. You've got all these ports on his legs where he's just taking abuse or giving abuse, your choice. You have the murder mace, has ports where you can put some blast effects in there, and I picked the blue ones. I thought it looked kind of cool, almost like a blue energy mace, kind of Kylo Ren style maybe. And then of course you do have the shot in the back from Starscream, and then all these other ports everywhere all over this guy. One point of curiosity, and I don't really want to call it a complaint, because with everything else you get here, it's more of a point of curiosity. The only blast effect compatibility that you get with the minigun is the ports on either side. So I didn't use both ports, obviously, because Bulkhead's head was in the way, but you've got ports on either side right here where you can have blast effects. But of course, due to the configuration of that being a minigun, you don't have any compatibility on the front. So just like I said, a point of curiosity, just something to note there. But everything else, my gosh, you can do almost anything with this figure, and it is just a blast. Pun completely intended there. So now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and we're going to get him into his alt mode, take a look at him there, and take a look at his details and see everything he has to offer in that mode. Through the magic of video editing, here we see Bulkhead in his alt mode, and it's a really, really nice looking Voyager class alt mode. He's obviously a military vehicle. I'm not knowledgeable enough to say exactly what kind, but it's definitely some kind of a transport, but he just looks cool. I mean, this works for me. I'm really impressed with this vehicle mode. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those details, and we'll start right up front. So we've already seen this. This is his chest, but now we'll take an opportunity to admire it in the vehicle mode. And you can see those little windshield wipers. Of course, you got the Autobot logo. You've got the headlights decked out right there. And then it looks like maybe you've got some kind of a winch or something right there. And then underneath, you've got that sculpt work even for the radiator. So it looks good. You got little mirrors right here in the corners. Coming over to the side, you've got that sculpt work for the doors and the windows right there. It all looks good. Then you've got these big old fuel tanks. And then here are those faux wheels that we saw on the back behind Bulkhead's head. And you can see how those just kind of fill in the gaps there. Wheels look all right. You know, I appreciate the fact that they have the effects ports there, but I think they would have looked good with a little bit of paint, you know, silver for those hubs. But again, being Voyager class, I'm not going to complain too much because this came out looking great. This, of course, is the tarp, the shield. We've already seen the details on that. Coming around to the back, even the back cleans up. I mean, it just plain looks cool. It's a great figure. There he is from the left side and from the top. So everything comes together pretty nicely there. And down at the bottom, can't really tell what you're looking at here. Maybe if you squint, you could see that these are the robot legs. But yeah, for the most part, the kibble just fades away. And these are his feet. But even then, unless you really know what to look for, you're not really going to see them. So a couple of nice features on this. He doesn't really have any articulation per se, but you can do a few things back here with this. This isn't anything that I've seen officially, but this is just something that I've discovered, is if you take these feet and bring them down, you can give yourself kind of a nice loading, unloading ramp. And you do have weapon storage in there, so you can see his murder mace. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, with my limited imagination, I'm seeing, you know, some kind of a weapon back here, you know, maybe like an EMP device or something like that that's been loaded up in the back of Bulkhead and ready to be hauled away for use wherever they're going to use it. So let's go ahead and look at something else real quick. So you can raise this tarp up. You can't raise it a lot, but you do have to separate it here from the rest of Bulkhead. But you can raise it up a little bit, especially if you lift these up out of the way. You can raise it up, and you can see that you also have weapon storage for your minigun in there. So it's really nice to have weapon storage in an alt mode on an Autobot that doesn't involve using that top port right there. And it's like, oh, look, it's just a vehicle with a big gun on top. So yeah, job well done there as well to be able to utilize that. Now, if you want, you can take this completely off and just put that off to the side. You don't need it. It does help as far as stability in this mode, but the fuel tanks are doing a lot of your support here. So you can see you have these little slots and tabs right there, so you can bring these feet back up and lock that in place. And then you kind of have Bulkhead as a, you know, a pickup, whatever you want him to be. So yeah, I really like this mode. My single biggest complaint on this mode, and it is typical with a lot of the Autobot vehicles lately, is you have absolutely minimal clearance between the bottoms of those wheels and everything tucked away underneath. And I know on a computer, when they're doing these on a CAD program, you know, they can zoom in, they can see, oh, it's like, oh, that's plenty of room. We've got, you know, 0.2 of a millimeter between the bottom of the wheel and, you know, this edge right here. It's perfectly fine. So if somebody's using a perfectly smooth glass surface, they won't scrape anything. But for anybody else living in the real world, I do have my concerns about rolling this over some surfaces and taking away some of these painted areas. So that's probably my single biggest complaint. Now, me personally, I'm going to have him on smooth surfaces. He's going to be, you know, in a detolf or some type of a glass shelf for the majority of his life. But there is always that possibility where you're going to scrape it. And not to mention, you know, you don't get the best rolling. This isn't a surface that's conducive to rolling anyway. But unless you have this guy absolutely perfect, and just in the course of me playing with him and taking that tarp off, you know, you can see that I've got my back wheel back here. He's not moving very well, which means I've probably got some kind of a scrape going on underneath. So yeah, that's my biggest concern. But everything else on the alt mode, storage, looks, everything on this, I adore it. It just looks really cool. So what we'll do just for fun is we're going to throw some blast effects on him in his alt mode here. Then we're going to get into those alt mode comparisons. And this is why I never wanted to grow up. If I grew up, I wouldn't be able to play with toys and do this kinds of stuff. There's no shame in it. I love it. Look at this guy. Look at all the blast effects, everything that you can do in the vehicle mode with him. And yeah, I'm cheating a little bit back here, you know, using those ports on his feet by opening those up. But rocket, military vehicle, why not? And then I'm using his murder mace, the port back there. But yeah, you've got all kinds of stuff that you can do with this guy. I mean, I don't know why there would be flames shooting out of his wheel hubs, but there are flames shooting out of his wheel hubs, and I'm pretty happy about it. So yeah, you can do whatever you want to do with this guy. I think his robot mode is great, his alt mode is great, and it's just so much fun playing with this guy. I can just, there's so much imaginative play that you can do with this figure. So there you go, blast effects in the alt mode. Let's go ahead and get into those alt mode comparisons so you can see how he stacks up to some other figures. So for our first alt mode comparison, I figured as a G1 representative I would bring in my G1 Combaticon Onslaught. I didn't really have anything in the G1 collection that is comparable as far as Autobot military vehicles, so I figured Onslaught would be a good substitute here, so you could see how Bulkhead looks next to a G1 figure. Moving on to our next comparison, I figured this one would be relevant for a couple of different reasons. So before I delve into that, this is the Hound figure that we got for the Bayverse Transformers Age of Extinction movie. And I thought for two reasons here he would make sense to be a comparison. Number one, as I understand it, this was actually supposed to be Bulkhead in the movie before Michael Bay decided to make a change. I can't verify that, but this is just the rumor that I've heard. So for me, I'm kind of looking at a Bulkhead and what could have been a Bulkhead. And secondarily, both of these guys are military transport vehicles. So, you know, Hound is an Oshkosh military transport vehicle. Bulkhead is a nondescript military transport vehicle. But yeah, I think these two work together. I think this is a good point of comparison. So hope you guys agree. Representing the War for Cybertron trilogy, this is the deluxe class Hoist figure, and you know, I thought it made sense. It's a green truck, and he's a green truck, so why not? Moving on to our next comparison, it's a Bulkhead versus Bulkhead face-off. So on the left, of course, you have the Transformers Legacy Voyager class Bulkhead, and on the right you have the Transformers Prime Bulkhead, but this is the figure in the Legends scale. So you can see how those two look. And for our main event and final alt mode comparison, it's another Bulkhead versus Bulkhead face-off. So yeah, I mean, this is the Bulkhead, what was the deluxe class, Voyager class? I can't remember exactly, from Transformers Prime, but man, I love this figure. I love the character. I love what they've done to him here. So there's a lot of Bulkhead love happening right now. But yeah, these two guys look great together. That is it for the alt mode comparisons. Let's get this guy into bot mode and do some comparisons there. For our first robot mode comparison, here we see the Transformers Legacy Voyager class Bulkhead on the left, and on the right we see the G1 Combaticon Onslaught. So when I did the alt mode comparisons, I used the Hound figure from the Transformers Age of Extinction movie. And what I'm doing here is I went ahead and I brought in for the robot mode, I brought in the Hound figure that we got for the Transformers The Last Night movie. So you can see the comparisons there, and you can see, you know, just how much this really does look like a Bulkhead. It's very possible that the rumors were true that Michael Bay decided at the last minute to change the character from Bulkhead to Hound. So, but regardless, those two guys look pretty good together. Moving on to our next comparison, this is Hoist, as we saw him in the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy. For the next comparison, on the left, of course, is the Transformers Legacy Voyager class Bulkhead. On the right is the Bulkhead figure that we saw from Transformers Prime, but this is the smaller version. This is the Legends class version of Bulkhead. And for our final bot mode comparison, here we see the two Bulkheads. Of course, on the left is that Legacy Voyager class Bulkhead, and on the right is Bulkhead as we saw him from the Transformers Prime series. And I gotta tell you, I'm in awe looking at these two figures because I really, really like this figure. But man, this guy is incredible. And I just love seeing these two guys side by side. I hope you do as well. All right, that's going to wrap up the comparisons, so let's go ahead and get into those final thoughts. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and talk about this Transformers Legacy Voyager class Bulkhead. Wow, I don't really know a whole lot else to say. This is everything I was hoping for and more for this figure. I was excited when I saw that this figure was coming out. I definitely had my concerns when I saw those first photos coming out, particularly with that chest area, but I am sincerely blown away by this figure. It is way more than what I was expecting. And I think what we have here is a figure that's going to set the bar for all figures moving forward from Hasbro and Takara. I think anything less than what we get here is going to be a disappointment. So let's try to quantify this guy. We'll start with that first bullet, which is aesthetics, the overall looks. Again, keeping in mind that everything that I say here is based on the fact that this is a Voyager class price point. So just keep that in mind. But I think for the aesthetics, for a Voyager class here, wow, you really don't get much better. He looks great in his bot mode. He looks really good in his alt mode too. So this isn't an either or situation. This is both modes look really good. But that bot mode it's hard to beat for that price point. I mean, he looks great. And of course, as you can see, I have him in my favorite pose. This is that shield bash kind of pose, which he just pulls off flawlessly. Just such a great look. So overall aesthetics on this guy, it's almost perfect for this price point. The only thing that I would really say is, maybe a few more paint apps, maybe some paint on that shield, maybe some paint on his forearms, kind of that area. But for the most part, yeah, this guy pulls it off and he looks great. So overall aesthetics, I'm going to give this guy a 9 out of 10 on that. Now, moving on to the articulation. Right there with aesthetics, for a Voyager class price point, you get about every joint you could imagine, and you get plenty of range of motion in all those joints as well. I mean, everything from the elbow joints to the knee joints, just considering the fact that they're single jointed, they're not even double jointed, and you can get nice deep bends in both of those sets of joints. The hips, he absolutely shines in the hips and the ankle tilt. The feet, they do everything that you want to do. Really about the only thing that you could want for in this guy is an ab crunch. And even then, I don't miss it, just because simply he can pull it off. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more movement in that head, maybe a little bit more side to side. If they could have extended that neck out just a little bit more on that ball joint, where you could have gotten a little bit more, but really not an issue, because you can turn that head side to side just fine. So articulation, I'm giving this guy a 9 out of 10 on articulation. Moving on to the accessories. I debated on the accessories. I went a little high, I went a little low. I really tried to think about it, and overall, I think, again, for this price point, what you get here is really good. I would have always want to get blast effects with my figures, but the fact that we have blast effect compatibility with this guy is good. So, I'm really happy about the fact that we have the blast effect compatibility, that you can make that murder mace kind of an energized murder mace as well. As I stated earlier in the review, the only question really is just, with the minigun up here, it would have been nice if they could have had some forward-facing blast effect instead of ports on the side. But you can still utilize the ports on the side and use your imagination and have a little bit of fun there. So overall, accessories, I'm going to give this guy a 9 out of 10. I was going to go with 8, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here with this new figure. I'm going to go ahead and give him a 9 out of 10, but just because it's simply all the amazing stuff that you can do. And this murder mace is really clever the way they do this right here. And the more I play with that shield, the more I love it. So moving on to quality. I don't have any major complaints here. Not at all. About the worst that I could say is the hip joints are out of the box, maybe just a little bit looser than I would have liked, but every other joint on this guy is incredibly tight. So overall quality on this guy, all those joints except for the hips are nice and tight. He came with all of his accessories. He doesn't have any major paint or molding defects. He does everything that you want this figure to do. So overall quality, I'm going to give this guy a 9 out of 10. I think very well done. And again, this is what I expect from a major manufacturer like Hasbro. Their last few releases, and I'm looking at you, Studio Series Bumblebee Wheeljack, have been really subpar. So they need to keep this up. This level of quality is what they need to keep up. Moving to our last value, or our last overall point here of value. I think for the most part, he hits the target. This is now a $30 Voyager. So, that price is creeping up on these Voyager class. But I think that for this figure in particular, he's worth it. Everything else makes up for that. I have no problems whatsoever with the price point here. As always, I'm not going to give him a perfect score on value unless I can get this guy for free. So in this circumstance, I found this guy in the wild, surprisingly, at a Target, and off the shelf he was $30 US. So I think for the most part this figure is worth it. There's just so much fun to be had with this figure that I didn't really feel the pain of letting go of my $30 to bring this figure home. So overall value, I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10, which brings us to out of a total possible 50 points, Bulkhead gets 44 out of 50, or an 88%. And this is easily a recommendation. This is a brand new mold. This is a brand new figure. The design is great. The engineering is great. The quality is great. The transformation is fun. It's surprisingly simple, but really effective. You get some great accessories with this guy. So I highly recommend that you pick this figure up if you can find him. I think you're going to absolutely adore him. I mean, even if you're just a casual Transformers collector or casual Transformers fan, man, this guy is a blast. He is so much fun. He looks great, and he is just so much fun to play with. And speaking of that, I'm actually going to go ahead and shut up now because I want to go play with this guy. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the interview. I hope you guys were entertained. I hope you got some good information out of this review. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe and leave some comments. Let me know what you think about this guy or what you think about the channel. So until we see you guys in the next review, take care.